What if the reason you hate sales is because you've never seen it done in the spirit? You've been taught to chase, to pressure, to pitch. But what if sales isn't about pushing people to say yes? Instead, it's about helping them make a decision that changes their life. This episode is not for the hustler bros out there. This is for the kingdom builders. The one who knows that they're called, but they still wrestle if they want to make the invitation with boldness. So if you've ever prayed for a way to sell that feels like ministry and not manipulation, my friends, this is your moment. Because what if the most holy thing you could do in business was to close with confidence? So sit back, kick back, and let's get started. For this is the School of Influence. The School of Influence, where legends are made and legacies are started. Interviews and insights to grow your impact on social media, networking, and stages. Class is now in session.
We're gonna take on the world.
Today's guest is a faith-driven sales coach who's redefining what it means to close with clarity and with heart. My friend Justin Janowski is the founder of Faith to Influence, where he trains Christian coaches and entrepreneurs to sell high-ticket offers without hype, without fear, and definitely with no manipulation. He's coached hundreds of leaders. He's built a powerhouse sales team, and he leads with one goal: to help God's people close sales in a way that reflects their true calling. So help me welcome my friend, Justin Janowski. All right, welcome my friend, Justin Janowski. Hey, brother, good to see you.
Hey, Devin, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Man, I remember it was a year and a half ago, maybe, when we first actually really connected, and we'd known of each other on social media, and I think we've even done a couple of events where we were on the same place together, but we noticed that there's some synergy there. And so it's just been great to get to know you, get to know your heart, and just how much you love people, and how you love people so much that you don't want to leave them where they're at. You want to bring them along in the kingdom. And I'm so excited for this exciting conversation that we're going to have today about what you've learned about faith and sales. Well, pardon the interruption, but let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your story was meant to impact thousands or millions of lives, but you literally just didn't know where to start? Did you know that there's over 2.9 billion people watching social media every single day? That's literally the biggest stage in the entire world. And yet most people are completely invisible on it. Why? Because they don't know how to tell their story in a way that actually connects to other people. And that, my friends, is exactly why I created Stories to Stages. We help you craft your entire story, professionally edit your video, and then we publish it across all major platforms. Plus, I'm going to give you access to my entire storytelling bootcamp. This is over $25,000 worth of value, but right now you can get the entire thing for just $7. $7. Because this isn't just a course, this is a launching pad. We've helped people with no audience, no experience, finally share their story with confidence and to get real reach. Because your story told in the right way involves and moves people. So go to stories2stages.com and grab your $7 spot with the code of podcast1. Your story was not meant to stay silent. So let's get seen, let's get heard, let's get paid, and let's set people free. So go to stories2stages.com, grab your $7 spot, and use the code podcast1 and get yours today. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
So let me just start off with this. When did you realize that sales and faith didn't have to compete together?
It's interesting, Devin. When I first started doing high ticket coaching sales, it was for another company. I worked for a place called Epic Impact, And I was a client there first and then became a coach and salesperson for them. And I remember I had a sales manager and I had a couple of mentors there and they were teaching me how to do sales. And they were teaching me like really high level influence tactics and how to make it easy for the right people to say yes. And so much of what I learned there was really valuable to me. But there were a few breaking points. And the breaking points were between me and my sales manager, where essentially he wanted me to do sales in a way that didn't feel honest, didn't feel fair, didn't feel like it had the highest level of integrity, didn't honor my faith or the way I'd want to treat people on sales calls. And so he kept like hammering me about never letting people off the call to talk to their spouse about like a $20,000 offer, which did not feel good to me at all. I would never make a decision like that without talking to my spouse. He didn't want me to let people off the call to pray or to think about it or go through those processes. And he had strategies and tactics on like how to keep them on the call and make them make a decision on that call. And we consistently got into little arguments about this because I would not say or do what he asked me to do. And so this became kind of a toxic thing, this back and forth between the two of us. And I stayed firm in wanting to do it God's way. And I was making sales and I was having some success. And I became the top sales rep at the company. And he still was at me about it though. It's not like he let up. It's not like the results proved anything for him. He was still just like after me to do it his way. And so eventually I told the company, I said, I gotta leave this job. I can't do this anymore. I can't work with this guy anymore. We're just not aligned in our values. And when I told them I was leaving, they literally doubled my income in an effort to keep me to stay. And they moved him from the sales manager position into a completely different department in the company, so that I would stay. And that showed like clearly how valuable my high integrity, loving, honest sales skill set was. That like they were willing to do all of that to keep me. And I stayed there for another 6 months, but then ultimately the divide between like where they were at spiritually and in their faith versus like what I wanted to bring. I wanted to bring Jesus right into my business. And they were calling God like the universe and the weaver and all kinds of source, all kinds of interesting names that probably some of the people on this call have heard. Um, and I just wanted to talk about God as Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And so that's when I left to start Faith to Influence. And I remember having that self-doubt and not being certain whether or not I could be the guy and whether or not this could work with faith at the forefront. And God had other plans. My goal was to earn 60 grand that first year. I earned over $250,000 in revenue my first year in business. And God like very resoundingly answered, yes, your faith and business can merge together and we can be honest and loving and kind and treat people well and still make a lot of sales. So those were kind of the two benchmarks. It was with that sales manager, and then it was with the launch of Faith to Influence that God just told me, this is the way.
I love that. I love that. So let me see if I got this all put into place. So you were with somebody else and kind of learned the ropes and kind of figuring out your own kind of frameworks of what was working. You were kind of tested in that to say, I don't think you should do this, but God says I should be doing this. And then God said, well, let's just push this aside, step out in faith to go and do something that you were like, I don't really know if I could do this. And it worked. And I'm sure that there were struggles in there and there was, processes that you had to figure out, but God was faithful through it all because you put him first, even in the sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember with that former company, I moved to San Francisco with my wife. We were newly married and we really increased our bills overnight, more than doubled our standard of living to live in San Francisco. We went from a 3-bedroom house paying $1,400 a month that we owned in Colorado to a studio apartment renting for over $3,000 a month in San Francisco. And like dates and meals were just insane and money was hard. And I remember that year we were choosing to tithe and trust God and we were doubling our tithe. So we'd been tithe, but we felt called like to the year of radical giving. That was our theme for the year. And so we gave 20% that year and just kept giving faithfully. And we were going further and further into debt. And at halfway through the year, my wife's like, hey, should we keep doing this or should we go back to 10%? Because we're not on a great track here. And we did keep going. And God did provide that year, my first 6-figure earnings year with that company, and then provided like really all the foundations of what we're able to do now. And I just remember the faithfulness to give when it felt hard. And there are two things I'm willing to go into debt doing. One is giving, and the second is taking my wife on dates. I don't care how much it costs for the babysitter and the date and like the combination of that on a weekly basis, that adds up to a lot. But I have to have that. I have to tithe and I have to take my wife on dates or I'm not going to make it. But God, he's faithfully provided, as I've faithfully trusted him.
That's so good. That's great. I love those. I love those. And I love the fact you talk about the tithing aspect because, sales is asking people to invest in something. And for you and for, us as believers, it's important for us to give back to God what's his and more when you have that opportunity or when he's asking you to, because if you're going to ask other people, you need to be doing it yourself and investing in the kingdom and what God wants to do. And so I love that because it really shows that we need to walk out the sales frameworks of what the Bible says of how to invest into the kingdom and then walk it out here. And so I know that you have like an amazing framework that you've taught for years. How long ago did you put together this framework?
I do want to give a lot of credit to the leaders and mentors I had at Epic Impact because I learned so much about sales and influence from them. But then there were some tweaks. There were some, God ways of doing these things that made a lot of sense. And so I learned and developed the skill set and the process from my mentors 2015 to 2018. Really learned a lot from them and started to develop out my process inside of their clear process. And then launched Faith to Influence in December of 2018. And at that point, like, really put down my specific process on paper and started teaching that right out of the gate. Like day one, that was early content at Faith to Influence. And so this has been something I've been working on fully for the last 6.5 years. And, in some way or another for the last 10 years.
Hmm. Yeah, it's incredible when we do take that step of faith. And one of my teachings that I focus on inside of my Influence Academy is about the favor of Nehemiah.
Mm.
And that when we know the blueprint that God has given to us, we can't go wrong. Like
Mm.
Nehemiah got the rite of passage from the king, and he said, "You're going to the other side. No matter what, you're going to get there." And so when we recognize that and you have it, he's na boo boo, y'all can't touch me. Like it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And so I love that in your journey where you can see that walking through of that. And you're taking pieces of your experience, of your expertise, of things that you've learned before. It's not that you have to throw things away, but how can you utilize it and making sure that it's built on the kingdom principles? Because
Mm.
you can't go wrong with kingdom principles if you apply it correctly. But you also have to be careful not to shove it down people's throats to where it makes it difficult for some people to recognize as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I believe sales, when done right, simply feels like coaching with an invitation at the end of it. It's an expression of love, an expression of goodness. It's asking questions and creating presence and space for people, getting really curious with them, allowing them to feel seen and encouraged, and helping people find clarity on what they want, where they're going, and what the biggest problems are that stand in the way. And then, of course, if they're committed to solving those problems and we can help, then we just want to invite them to the help and,
Mhm.
see where the chips fall from there. If there's objections and concerns and questions, we just want to remain curious and calm and confident and have a good conversation and provide leadership and help people find the right answer for them. And so all of that feels like, really the honorable, like loving, Christ-centered way to show up for people in a call is like, let's serve at the highest level, whether they buy or not. Let's love them, create space. Let's ask great questions. Let's make it about them. Let's like pour our presence and energy into them. And then if we can help them, let's invite. And whether they say yes or no, the call can be really valuable for both sides if it's done right.
Yeah. It seems so easy when we talk about it, but implementing it, takes some time. Habits
Yeah.
take time to change, mindsets take time to change. Um, so we're gonna walk through some of these frameworks, and we'll give you guys a copy. We'll have a link down in the descriptions of this, so you guys can solely focus on the conversation. But before we even get there, Justin, tell us a little bit about what you guys do at Faith to Influence, as far as like you're going to other places and helping other people. Give us a little insight so that, the listeners know what we're kind of talking about, what you've built because of this framework.
Yeah, at Faith to Influence, I initially started out working with Christian entrepreneurial men, and it was like a very broad group that worked on like family relationships, husband and father, and then business stuff and integrating faith and kind of bringing all those pieces together. As God helped me have success that first year, and I earned 250 grand in revenue. Some of those men wanted to be coaches themselves. And I said, "How'd you build this? Can you give us the playbook on how to put this business together?" And as I worked with those first couple clients doing that, I was like, wow, that's really fun. It felt like it was really the best use of my genius and what God had like prepared me for. And I love the idea of helping other coaches reach their audiences and the ripples of impact that come from that. And so I transitioned after a couple of years to working full time with Christian coaches, men and women now. And we work with them in a couple of different ways. Our core business is what I'm most excited about, and I'll speak about that in a second. But then, like the secondary kind of side business that God has built is what we call partnership sales. So sometimes 7 and 8 figure coaches who are very successful already, running big conferences with hundreds or thousands of people, will invite us to bring a sales team to sell for them directly at those conferences. And we've done that for people like Pete Bargett and Pedro Adeo and Dr. Darius Daniels and Nick and Megan Unsworth and so many amazing leaders there. We've worked with a couple dozen leaders in the partnership sales. So that's just kind of an accidental business. My favorite work is working with a newer coach who's usually between 0 and 100K in annual revenue, who's trying to figure out how to build a sustainable business in an honorable way. And so what we do is we help them with their sales, we help them with their marketing, we help them with their offers and pricing and putting the business plan together. And we do that through our membership community, Christian Coaches Academy, where we've got a library of trainings. We've got over 120 coaches in Christian Coaches Academy connecting with each other. There's a directory. They get to have coffee chats and have community. We pray together every week. The next level for us is sales school, where our clients get all of that, but then we also do weekly live trainings and Q&As, and they get direct training with me in a group setting on these skill sets and on these parts of the business plan. And then at the higher level, we actually do some private coaching. So occasionally I'll have people fly to Milwaukee or I'll come out to them and we spend a day and a half working on their business and try to condense time and put all the pieces together in a short amount of time. Ultimately, though, what we're really trying to do is help people accomplish their entrepreneurial dreams, to get their businesses off the ground and to help make sales and marketing easy, turn it into a system that doesn't have to be overly complex, but actually works for people over time.
I love that. I love everything that you've put together, the process of it. Love the logo and stuff to see God out there. It's good. I was wear it the whole time except for, the shadows. Ever wear a hat when you're on camera. But, Justin, I love what you do. I love your heart in it all. And I felt like it was important for people to understand the process of what you have put together. Normally I don't let anybody share about what they do like in that of depth, but there's synergy that you have, and I know that people are drawn to you in what they do. So thank you for sharing all of that. So now, we know where you kind of came from, what you're doing now. Kind of walk us through that framework, starting off with where we can find it.
Okay, great. And I want to say this before a sales process can be effective, just for people to kind of have their ducks in a row, here are the things you need to have. Number one is a clear mission statement. And that means you know who your ideal client is with specificity. You can recognize like what 1 or 2 or 3 problems you can solve for them that they know they have and they're willing to pay to solve. And you can articulate why it matters, the end outcome people are after. And so getting that mission statement together says, for me, it's like I help Christian coaches optimize their business models, their sales and marketing strategies so that they can scale their income and scale their impact. What my clients want is to earn more and they want to impact more people. They want to fulfill God's mission for them, right? And the biggest problem standing in the way for most of them is sales. And so I can articulate that, and it's specifically for a Christian coach, and that makes it easy for people to find me and want to work with me. And so everyone who's listening needs to have that for themselves too. And it becomes foundational to everything else you do. It should be reflected in everything else you do. My podcast is a sales strategies for Christian coaches podcast. It's so clear what it is and who it's for, and it speaks directly to the mission statement. Same thing with our group programs, same thing with our website. It all tells the same story. And so we want to get that in place first. Then we want to make sure that we have the right signature offers. Every coach or entrepreneur should have 1, 2, or 3 signature offers. Less is more for new coaches. 1 or 2 is usually best. but designing an offer that won't burn you out, that's fun for you, but's irresistible to your most ideal client is really important. Then once we've got the right offer in place to go along with a very clear mission statement that's going to speak to our most ideal client, then we need the marketing and lead flow strategies that are going to help us attract that client and get them on a sales call in the first place. And we talk about this in two terms. There's a short game and a long game. The long game is what can we do every single week for the next 3 or 5 years for sales to be way easier for us later on. This podcast is a great expression of the long game. You provide tremendous value. It takes time to build an audience. It takes time to turn that audience into paying clients. But over time, a podcast can produce sales and have people coming to you. Same thing with a YouTube channel, social media efforts, a website, all of that kind of stuff, blogs and books and things like that. They're all good things, but they usually don't produce sales immediately for new coaches. They take a few years of time. And so while we're playing the long game, we need to play the short game. We need to say, what can I do today to make a sale this month so that I can get to the payoff of the long game? And that's things like reaching out to people in our network. It's asking for referrals. It's meeting new people and networking in a really empowered way. It's speaking, direct messaging people on social media. There's different ways to do this. For some people, paid ads, new coaches, that usually isn't the right first step. It's too complicated and too difficult. But we need to be able to employ strategies that can produce sales now and get us on calls. So if we get those things in place, we've got the right mission statement and language around it. We've got the right signature offer. We've got the right marketing strategy for us that feels relatively natural, that we can turn into a bit of a system. The goal would be that we consistently get on calls with people where we can invite them to buy. We can provide tremendous coaching and provide a lot of help and then take the next step. And that's what this 10-step sales process is all about. And if people want a little bit of help on some of the things I just mentioned, but also our exact 10-step sales process in written form, they can grab that at goodsalespdf.com, www.goodsalespdf.com. So if you're listening to this and you don't want to have to try to scramble and take every single note, we've got our entire process written out in a very thoughtful way in a little book that we'll give you digitally. And it's goodsalespdf.com. There's your coach's playbook. So they won't get the full playbook that our clients get, but they're going to get all the sales aspects of it. And yeah, if you're ready, I'm happy to share the 10-step process today.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, let's dive into it. So the first step is to get into a peak emotional state at the beginning of the call. And so when we think about getting on a sales call, I know so many people, even some of the people listening to this show right now might be thinking, that sounds scary. That sounds intimidating. That doesn't sound fun. That doesn't sound like me or what I want to do. And I totally get that if that is you. What I will say is when we feel good, we're going to do well. And emotion's really contagious. And so if we have a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear going into the call, our prospects are going to feel some of that anxiety and fear too. And it's not really good for creating an buy-in environment. But if we feel really confident, if we feel peaceful, if we feel loving, if we feel present, then our prospects are going to feel more of that too. It's going to be easier for them to take the next step. And so we want to get ourselves into a peak emotional state with what I would call a pre-call ritual. I'm going to get to that in just a second. One of my lights went out. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back on. I love my blue light. But the pre-call ritual is really important. And for me, it's something I do before every sales call. I do before many of my speaking engagements. And it's where I'm going to like take some deep breaths. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to pray out loud. I'm going to ask God to deliver the emotional experience I want to be feeling. And I'm going to pray and surrender to God in the experience I'm about to have. So if I'm about to get on a sales call, it might be weird. Like I'm going to take some deep breaths in through my nose, out through my mouth. And it might look and sound like this. God, help me to be confident, loving, and peaceful. God, help me to serve at the highest level on this call. God, if this is my client, help me to make it really easy for them to say yes. And God, help me to serve them no matter what and provide tremendous value on this call and give them the direction they need, God. I pray that you would speak through me, deliver through me, God. Help me to be confident, loving, and peaceful. Help me to be confident, loving, and peaceful. Amen, amen, amen. And then I'll let the person in from the waiting room. And now I'm ready. Now, you don't have to do it the way I do it. You might play a favorite song and dance around the room. Maybe you don't want to get hyped like I want to get hyped. Maybe you want to sit down and meditate and breathe and slow down and be calm. There's so many different ways we can do this, but every one of us needs to have something we can do in 30 seconds or 60 seconds to get ourselves feeling good. Once we do that, we can begin the call. And that moves to step 2 of the process, which is getting into rapport. And rapport is about just being connected to the other persons, recognizing how they communicate so we can communicate in a way they can receive, and then transitioning to the next step. And so for me, getting into rapport is brief. It's like 30 or 60 seconds in most cases. I'm like, hey, how are you? Awesome. I'm doing great. How has your day been so far? And they're like, oh, it's been okay, or it's been frustrating, or it's been great. I've been doing this. And they're like, how was your day been? And I'm like, oh, it's been good. I'm going through this. Or, oh man, I can recognize those frustrating days. I've had those. It's been busy for me today too. And I'm just like connecting and resonating with them quickly. But then I'm transitioning after those couple of questions into the pre-frame. And the pre-frame to me is the most important part of the conversation. I think a lot of amateur coaches and salespeople spend 20 minutes or 30 minutes in rapport, and it communicates a couple of things. One, it communicates that your time isn't worth a whole lot. And if we're a coach and an influencer and a leader, small talking about the fish on the wall, and other things that, the weather and things that are going on today, and it's a form of sales avoidance, and it's a form of like leadership avoidance. It's a suggestion that like this time isn't that valuable. Let's just waste most of it small talking. But the other thing it communicates is like you're just trying to build a friend on this call. And if all of a sudden like you go from 20 or 30 minutes of just trying to act like you're trying to make a friend and then you make an offer, that's when it feels awkward and strange. And the whole thing's like, wait, this person was just trying to be my friend so they could sell me something? And people are so confused. And I think sales, when it's disguised or it's hidden, or it's avoided, it ends up feeling really awkward and strange. And so what I want to do is right up front in the call, I want to be clear about the outcome of the call, and I want to be super transparent about sales. And that's what the pre-frame does. It prepares everything else. We'll continue to develop a relationship throughout the call by the nature of the questions I ask them and the way I show up for them. But I'm not going to waste time at the beginning. I want to be clear and upfront about what this is about and get their consent to sell. And I want them to know where we're going so that we're both on the same page about the outcome of the conversation. And
So
so,
what happens if they start the rapport and they're kind of going off? How do you direct? How would you suggest people redirect before that pre-frame to get there?
yeah. Yeah, if the other person starts telling some long story with a lot of tangents, they're gonna pause at some point to get my response and reactions. And it's not gonna take very long. They'll pause or laugh or take a drink of water or get to a point where I can kind of jump in at some point within the first couple of minutes for sure. And so when they do, I'm just gonna say, "Wow, this is so interesting. I feel like I've got like 100 questions that I could go with here." I also want to make sure that we really honor our time. Would it be okay with you if I set a simple pre-frame for this call? Or would it be okay with you if I set a simple structure for this call? And they will always say yes. And then I'm into my pre-frame. And that's going to sound like, great. Like, thanks so much for connecting today. To make the best use of your time and mine, I'd like to lay out a structure for this call. Would that be okay? Or if I had that interruption where I'm saying that, I'm just like, okay, great. The reason we're talking is Devin tells me that you're a great coach and a Christian, and I work with Christian coaches to help them optimize their business models, their sales, and their marketing strategies so they can scale their income and scale their impact. My outcome on a call like this today is to get to know you better and discover whether or not it's a fit for us to work together. And the way I'd like to get to that outcome is by asking you some questions about where you're at in your business right now, what your goals are for the future, and what some of the challenges are that you're facing right now. From there, I can give you some coaching and perspective based on what I hear. And if it seems like a good fit, I'll explain really specifically how I work with my clients. And then you and I can decide either to work together or not work together. And either way is fine. Does that sound good? So that's all laid out, by the way, in the Good Sales PDF. And so if you go get and grab that, it's going to give you the language so you can adjust it for yourself. But this gives transparency. It's super clear what the call is about. And then they say yes and give me consent, which allows us to move into the process of asking questions and making the call about them.
Yeah, and I love how natural it was. It didn't sound pushy, it didn't sound controlling, but it was just, "Hey, we're gonna have a conversation here about this. This is the way the conversation is gonna go because you want leadership in this to be able to ask the questions and to get to the point to where they wanna be."
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna be their coach, and I'm wanting their permission to do that on this call. Now, this also works in a networking call and maybe a little bit less formal than a direct sales call. And if it's networking, I'm still gonna pre-frame it. I got introduced to Tom Ziegler by John Yuan Ortiz, one of my friends, and it was amazing. Tom wanted to have a call with me. I still pre-framed that call with Tom. Now it was more of a networking, like honoring the other person, like open pre-frame rather than I've got an offer. I want to see if it makes sense for you to buy it. So with Tom, it was like, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time after like 30 or 60 seconds of rapport. Like, hey, I'm so glad Johnny Wan connected us. I'm really excited to get to know more about you and what you're doing at Ziegler these days. I really respect you and your family and what you and your dad have built. And I want to catch up on what you guys are working on right now, what projects you're excited about. I'll share what I'm doing and just see how we can support each other. Maybe there's an opportunity for referrals. Maybe there's an opportunity to collaborate. If we just become friends and prayer warriors, I'm cool with that too. Does that sound okay? And he said, yes. I said, great. Fill me in. Like, what's happening at Ziegler these days? And I was able to lead that call with Tom Ziegler. And if people don't know, like, son of Zig Ziglar, 250 million people they've coached and spoken to and led in their lifetimes as an organization. They're way bigger than me, but I was still able to, like, lovingly and easily and lightly, without it feeling like I was trying to make myself an authority, I was able to lead that conversation with him. So once he shared, then I shared, and then I said, I see a couple of opportunities. What do you see? And we were able to, like, kind of sort through that and find the way forward. And he ended up inviting me to speak at his conference. I ended up inviting him to speak at ours, and he came out and he waived his speaking fee and came and spoke to our group. I mean, amazing things. And we may not have gotten there if I wasn't willing to pre-frame and lead the call. That put us on a level playing ground. And so even in a little networking call, I like to pre-frame. I like to say, hey, I'm so glad that we got connected, or hey, it was great meeting you at the thing. I want to learn more about you, share about myself, and just see how we can support each other. Are you okay with that? Pre-frames make everything else easier.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for going in depth. That was so good. I hope you guys are even taking notes on these things. Like, he'll give us all those things, but make sure that you're writing down and re-listen to this so you can take all these nuggets that it's given us. So let's keep going. You got the pre-frame. What's next?
So what we have as step 4 is mid-call objections. I teach people how to handle somebody objecting in the middle of the call. If somebody were to say, like, oh, like, I don't, how much does it cost? Or how long is this going to take? Or anything other than, like, yes to the pre-frame and the process. Or if you feel like somebody's, like, acting like they're in a rush, or they're kind of short on the answers with you, like, I teach people how to handle that, if and when it comes up. But if we have a strong pre-frame, that stuff doesn't come up very often. So I'm not going to dive super deep into that right now. What I want to tell people is what commonly happens, which is we go from the pre-frame to step 5, which is discovery. And discovery is questions about the present and past. So what is commonly going to happen at the end of the pre-frame there, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to say, okay, great. Tell me about your business, or tell me about your marriage, or tell me about your faith walk, or whatever it is that you work with people on that you've pre-framed. And we ask questions about the present and the past, and we want to get curious. We want to go 2 or 3 layers below the surface and have a deeper conversation than they're used to having. Be really present with them, compliment them, sit with them in it, feel the emotions with them, if and when they come up, and, like, really get to understand where they're at right now. And then we move to discovery, which is a lot like vision, or excuse me, we move to vision, which is a lot like discovery. Isn't it fun how our brains do that? And in vision, it's the same thing, except we're asking questions about the future. So I'm saying, okay, well, tell me about your vision for the future. What do you really want to create in your business? How much do you want to be earning in your business? How many clients do you want to be working with? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? And why do you want that? If you had that, then what would you want? And tell me more. And, like, going layers of depth and creating layers of depth in here. And the truth is, most people never get an opportunity to share their dreams, their goals, their vision out loud. And when they do, people don't respect them. They don't give them presence. They don't love them. They don't encourage them. They don't believe in them. If we just sit there with them and allow them to share what they really want in their life or their marriage or their health or whatever it is that you work with people on, their business, and we create space and we sit with them in belief that they can have this, we're giving them a gift already. Whether they work with us or not, this is going to be a really meaningful call. It's such a wonderful thing for us to do for people. If we've done this well in discovery and vision, though, we know now where they're at and where they want to go, point A and point B. So the third question in that is what stands in the middle, what's in between the two of where they're at and where they want to go, which is what we call the gap. And this is, for us, step 7. And the gap is, what's the biggest challenge that's standing in the way from you achieving that vision or achieving that goal? And we want to understand the biggest challenge, the biggest problem, what stopped them so far, and how long have they been facing that challenge? There's so much power in finding the challenge or the problem and helping them identify that so they can solve that problem either on their own or with us. I'll pause here for a second in case you want to reflect on any of this, or I can keep running.
Keep going. Keep going. It's good.
flow. Let's keep flowing. Okay. I came up for air just in case. Uh, After the gap, I want to get into potential future. It's nice for us to go through this and have people just feel kind of the energetic of how this moves. But potential futures is to say, okay, you've been facing that problem. How long have you been facing that problem around sales? If my client tells me, man, I'm earning $10,000 annually right now, and I want to be earning $100,000, and the biggest problem is I'm struggling with sales. And I'm like, okay, how long have you been struggling with sales? And they're like, since the beginning of my business. How long have you been in business? They're like, 2 years. Wow, 2 years you've been facing that challenge. What would the consequence be of 2 more years of not solving that problem? And it's like, what if they don't solve this problem? And I think there's so much value in giving people an opportunity to walk that story for even a few moments. If people are like, oh man, I'm really struggling with like conflict resolution in my marriage. Like my wife and I, like whenever we're good until we like get into a fight or something goes wrong and we do not handle those situations well. How long have you been facing that problem in your marriage? And they're like, oh man, since we got married 7 years ago. Oh my gosh. What would the consequence be of another year of showing up with that level of immaturity in conflict in your marriage? And they're like, gosh, I don't know if we'd make it another year. Ah, how would that feel to know like that thing got in the way of something that could have been great? And they're like, oh, it would feel horrible. And who else would this affect besides you? And okay, so that like we're drawing this out a little bit, but same thing with business, same thing with health. Like, what's the consequence of not solving the health problem? It's massive for a lot of people, and it's so valuable for people to spend a couple of minutes going there. I know it takes a little courage and energy to ask these questions, but this is a gift for the other person, whether they hire us or not. And then the other side of potential futures is fun. And so let's say, okay, cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me ask you this though, like on the other side of it, what if you were to conquer this problem? Or what if you were to master the sales skill set? Or what if you were able to like create more love through conflict rather than more discontent in your marriage? Like, what if you flipped the script on that and it actually became a reason that you became closer, that you loved each other more, that you had a greater depth in your marriage? What would be possible then if we could solve this one problem? And like, people will get really excited thinking about what would be possible and well, this could happen and that could happen. Yeah. And then what? And how would that feel? And who else would that affect besides you? Yeah. And then what would happen? Wow. This sounds really important. So then the next step after potential futures is commitment. And so it's to say, how committed then are you to solving this problem? And if they're committed to solving the problem, that's a client we can help. If they're like, I don't know, this isn't really that important to me, that's probably not your client. That's fine. Some people might be scared to commit and they might be like, oh, I really want to, but I've tried in the past. I haven't been. I understand. Commitment's scary. But if you had all the support, all the resources, all the coaching, all the community that you needed, would you be willing to do your part?
Hmm.
And they're like, yeah, I would. Okay, cool. That's committed enough for me. And then we're about to get to the offer. Commitment is step 9. And before step 10, which is where we make our offer, I've got a little stop at step 9 3/4. This is for the Harry Potter fans out there. If you're like, no, Christians shouldn't read Harry Potter. All right. We disagreed on the first thing on this call. I understand. I understand. To me, it's a battle of good and evil. It's not that different from Lord of the Rings or anything else. Anyways, step 9 3/4. I like a statement of certainty and an ask for consent before we go to our offer. So if they're like, yeah, I'm committed, then I'm like, great. If you're committed, Devin, I'm really confident I can help. Are you ready to hear how I work with my clients? Like, really simple. If you're committed, I'm confident I can help. Are you ready to hear how I work with my clients? And so like they know that I believe I can help them. Now you're only saying this when you believe it. When they've got a problem to solve that you can solve. But then the second part of it is asking for that consent again. Are you ready to hear how I work with my clients? And when they say yes and invite us over the threshold, that conversation feels a lot different. It's a lot better. And to step 10 is the 6 O's of closing. And the first part of it is making our offer. And so at this point, we're going to say, okay, great. The way I work with my clients is, and we're going to lay out the details of the offer. We should have a little bit of a heart close in this and like what we think the offer is about for them and how we believe it can help them achieve their outcome, and why it's important, why we'd like to work with them. And then we want to share the price. And then we have to ask for the order. We have to ask if they're ready to buy. We have to say, is this something that you'd like to do? And then they might say yes. I want to end every call with yes, no, or the next call booked. Sometimes it's going to be a clear yes, and I want to collect payment on that call. Sometimes it's going to be a clear no, this isn't a fit right now, and I'm okay with that. I love that. I just want clarity. I'm happy for people to say no if it's not for them. I want to make it easy for the right people to say yes. And in the in between, though, I want to think about it. I want to talk to my spouse. I need to sleep on it. I need to pray, etc. I'm fine with that also, but I want to end the call with the next call booked. So if they're not ready to make the decision today and they're like, I need to talk to my spouse, I'm like, I totally get it. I'd talk to my spouse too. Let me ask you a question. Have you made your decision for you yet? If she says, whatever you think, babe, I trust you. Do you know what you want to do? And, maybe there's another objection, or maybe like my prospect's like, yeah, I'm in. Like, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. I'm like, okay, awesome. How long do you need to talk to your wife? Do you think you can have that conversation today, tomorrow? Could we line up a call for tomorrow or Friday to make that decision together? And I want to get to the place of like agreement on like when the decisions can be made, ideally within the next week, usually within a day or two. And great, can we line up a 15-minute Zoom call where I can answer any final questions that come up and we can make that decision together? And if you decide to move forward, we can begin the onboarding process. And people will say yes every single time. They'll line up that next call. That means I don't need to have any awkward follow-up. It's not this like floating open loop. They will make a real decision because they've got a deadline. We'll have a real conversation. I don't need to text and then wonder like, hey, how soon's too soon to text again, and turn into this like strange dating-like thing where I'm chasing and pursuing too hard. And it's not effective. So every call ends with yes, no, or the next call booked. And then of course, when we work with people closely, we're teaching them how to handle objections with curiosity and asking good questions, and ultimately just trying to help people make the best decision that they can for themselves.
Mhm. That's great. That's so good. I love the whole flow of those things. How do you know in the middle of this framework when maybe somebody's just not a good fit and you maybe shouldn't continue on in the conversation? How would you handle something like that?
Yeah. If I'm early on in discovery, and I can tell that it's more likely that I can tell that they're disinterested than I'm disinterested. In most cases, someone's not booking a call with me to have this conversation if they're not interested in building a coaching business. Like, I'm getting on calls with Christian coaches. Usually they want to build a business, right? If your business is designed around working with Christian entrepreneurial moms, and you get on a call with a Christian entrepreneurial mom, and like you've got some great gift that you can give to that Christian entrepreneurial mom, or like you're running a dad's group and like you're talking to a dad, who might want help with like, their kids. Like, usually there's gonna be some level of interest in your side and working with them, but sometimes not, right? So let's talk about both. What can happen is I can get on a call with somebody. This doesn't happen very often for me anymore because we're pretty well targeted. But in the past, it used to happen more often where I'd get on a call with somebody. I realized like they didn't seem very interested in having this conversation. This is kind of the mid-call objection. So this is like the person who's seeming disinterested or giving me short answers, or just seems like bothered by the questions I'm asking them, or seems like they're in a rush or something. So I don't want to force through any resistance. If I can tell that there's something up, I want to stop and talk about it and just get curious. And so I'm going to say, hey, can we just pause for a second? I feel like I'm noticing blank. Like, I feel like I'm noticing that a little shortness in the answers to the question, or I feel like I'm noticing like it seems like you're in a rush, or I feel like I'm noticing like maybe we're a little bit out of rapport right now. I just want to check in on that. Is this a conversation that you want to be having? Or is this still a good time for us to talk? And they can be like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit distracted because of they can explain. You could always reschedule and say, hey, we don't need to talk right now. Like, why don't we book another time when you could feel more present? Or they might be like explaining and be like, I do want to have the call. I'm sorry. I've got this on my mind. And maybe now we can move past the thing because they've spoken life into whatever's going on. Or they might say, yeah, I just don't feel like this is for me, or something like that. Great. Like, I totally get it. Like, this isn't for everybody. Why don't we just end the call early? Like, I'd love to take any prayer requests you have, and I'm here for you, door wide open if you ever want to work together in the future, but I don't want to, force you through a conversation that's not really for you. I totally get that. And like, this is just an honorable, respectful way to like respond to somebody, by speaking the elephant in the room and not forcing through resistance and letting people go. We don't need any one client. We don't need any one sale. We don't need any one commission. God is abundant. There's more than we need out there in the marketplace. So that's one thing to consider. On the other side of it is, if I'm asking questions, let's say I work with like 100K plus business owners, right? I like working with new coaches, but let's say my program was just for coaches who are over 100K and they're trying to build $1 million business. And I'm on a call with somebody, I'm in discovery, and I realize that this is a person who, they've only made one sale so far, and it was for $150. and they're just getting started. What I like to do, if I know that like there's a gap between people who are starting and like people who are ready for me, I like to be prepared with who do I know who I could refer to. So like, let's say I wanted to work with people at 100K to a million, and Devin's working with people from 0 to 100K. I want to know Devin. I want to have a place I can send people. So I'm not just like, oh, you're not good enough for me, and letting them go in a way that they feel like, great, that didn't help. And now I don't know where to go next or what to do. I want to have a resource available, like send them to my free podcast, send them to a book I'd recommend, or refer them to another coach. So I might say, wow, thank you so much for sharing. And I want to like compliment them, like compliment sandwich, honestly, like about giving feedback. Like, I thank you so much for sharing. I can feel how passionate you are about building this business. I can tell that God's placed something important in your heart. One of the things that I want to share is I'm actually the coach who comes in when people are already at $100,000 in revenue and they're trying to scale to 1 million. And so I'm typically working with a client who's a little further along. You're the kind of client I would love to work with once you reach that 100K mark, if you're looking to scale beyond it. I've got a friend though who works with clients or coaches who are brand new, who are somewhere between 0 and 100 and are just trying to build a sustainable business. His name is Devin Schubert. He's amazing at this. I'd love to introduce you to Devin. I think it could be beneficial for both of you. Would you be open to me making that introduction? So I'm gonna like try to like help them and make an introduction and be honest about and I think this builds even more trust and rapport with people. And and then, if whether that works or not, like I'm like, okay, cool. Like, do you have any prayer requests before we hop off or any other questions for me? Like, how can I help in our last few minutes here? I'm gonna transition out of the call early. So that's how I'm gonna handle situations like that.
Yeah, and I love that approach because a lot of times we think, "Oh, well, we're gonna miss out on money, we're gonna miss out on a client," when actually you're building much more respect and trust with that person that, that they're not your ideal, client, and it's also referring to somebody that you're aligned with, somebody that you trust, and then this other person is, more apt to bring more people to you. It's all about
Mm.
that relationship building and having that circle of influence that you have to where you can do that networking type of thing, but you also want to make sure that when you refer somebody, it's a good referral, and the person that you're sending them to. And, inside of Influence Academy, we talk about how to be able to find that circle. And you know what? Sometimes the hardest thing is when I make a mistake and somebody's not, or they make a mistake and, they fall off or things like that. And man, I carry such weight sometimes when it happens. Like, I'm so sorry that that happened. I'm so sorry that this is how that ended up. Um, because that trust is important to me because I want to transfer that with that person. So I love that approach of making sure that they have some type of solution at the end of the call.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't know what the next step is or what the right solution is, just be honest about that and pray for them. Like it's totally fine for you to be like, wow, like this sounds and maybe you recognize somebody needs therapy more than they need coaching, right? But it's not your place and you're not certain and you're not sure who to make a referral to. Like, if it's some situation like that, I'd just be honest. I'd be like, hey, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing all of this with me. I'm not sure that I'm the right coach to help you solve this problem. And I don't feel like I have all the answers on this, but I know who does, and it's God. And what I'd love to do is pray with you. I'm so glad we got to know each other. I'd love to pray with you and just pray for his support. And I'd love to like just be here as a friend for you if you need in the future. Does that sound okay? Yes, cool. And then pray for them right there on the spot. And really pray hard, like pray for God to present the solution and the next steps for them. And you can wrap the call in a really loving way that way too, if you don't have a better solution. And of course, that's an excellent solution no matter what, we're pairing it with is prayer and bringing it to God.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this. It's been such an amazing time of learning and growing and going through these steps and just refreshing a lot of things for myself as well. It's been such a good conversation. So where can they find you at? And you can let them know again of the goodsalespdf.com. And so let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, I'd love for people to connect on social media. I'm on most of the sites, Facebook and Instagram and IG and YouTube, and you can find me at Justin Janowski. Janowski's just like it sounds. Jan like the girl's name, Ow like you hit me, ski like we're on the mountains. Justin Janowski, and send me a direct message if you're like interested in having a further conversation or you've got a question. I will reply to you directly myself on Facebook in a direct message. So I'd love to connect with people there. And then the goodsalespdf.com is a really nice resource that also gets you on our email list. So you can see our weekly sales newsletter and our weekly podcast and all of those kinds of things.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't recommend Justin enough for what he does and his integrity of the way that he wants sales to happen, not just for his team, but for everybody that he comes in contact with. And so definitely take him up on that, follow him, and get onto his podcast and listen to that as well. Justin, at the end of every show, I love to just give the guests an opportunity for someone who's listening today and is maybe struggling with sales and they don't know where to start. What would be a quick thing that you'd like them to implement and leave them with today?
Okay, I'm going to give one mental thing and then one like tangible thing on the outside. The mental thing is begin to find awareness on what is the old story you have about sales that's causing resistance. And so it might be, I'm not good at sales, or it might be sales is pushy, or sales is manipulative, or sales feels bad, or if I do sales, I'm going to feel rejected and judged by my friends. Whatever that story is that's been floating around your mind anyways, make that small on a piece of paper, write it down. And then you can strike a line straight through it and write not true in big capital letters if you want to be bold, but write the more empowering true story underneath it. And so if it was sales is manipulative, well, maybe it has been for other people, but the new story might be sales with me is service. Sales with me is generous. Sales with me is honest. Sales with me is loving. Or if you thought, man, I'm just not good at sales, maybe the new story is with the right process, I know I can be great at sales. Maybe you haven't been the problem. Maybe the process has been the problem. The world's way hasn't worked for you. That's okay. So we want to have awareness of the old story so that we can write a new story and change the way we feel and remove resistance in our mind. Now, the second piece is if you're going to implement it and have a sales call today or tomorrow or next week, implement the pre-frame, that one step. Just tell people what the outcome of the call is, what the process is that you'd like to get to use to get to the outcome. Tell them that they don't have to buy, but you'd like to make an offer if it feels like a fit, and ask if it's okay to go through that process. Like, does that sound good? And just get that consent, because everything else flows downhill pretty naturally after that. So just begin to cultivate that habit of pre-framing the conversation, even if you're doing it imperfectly.
Great advice. Great advice. So for those of you watching, those of you listening, those of you that have been stuck in sales, those of you who are growing your business but didn't know what the next step is, now you have 10 to be able to implement and be able to take to the next level. And so rewatch this, go through Justin's PDF form and really implement the ways and the steps. Take some time to be able to really get clear on what this looks like, not just as a way of a presentation, but for who you are as a person. Because if you don't get it right inside, you won't get it right outside. So thank you, Justin, for joining us. And for today, school is dismissed, but your influence never takes a day off. So stay bold, stay good, and thank you very much. Bye.